The Unspoken Truth. Chapter 1. The Forgotten Photographs. I can't remember the last time I stepped foot into my childhood home, but here I was now, standing in front of its weathered porch, clutching a worn suitcase and a sense of trepidation. After decades, I had decided to return for reasons unknown even to myself. Perhaps it was the faint whispers of an old life long buried under adult obligations, or perhaps fate had finally grown tired of my evasive gaze. Whatever the reason, here I stood before the musty house where memories both sweet and sour resided within its stone walls, beckoning me back. Stepping inside, a familiar scent, a blend of aged paperbacks, stale air, and something faintly metallic, enveloped me as the creaking floorboards protested my weight. The silence was deafening until I heard it, a muffled thud reverberating from upstairs. My mother had moved out years ago. I doubted she would have left anything worth collecting or dust. On an impulse, curiosity propelled me towards the second story, where childhood echoes waited to greet me. Each step up the staircase seemed to carry its own weight, as though carrying luggage of forgotten dreams and shattered expectations. As my fingers closed around the doorknob of my old room, a shiver ran down my spine despite the sweltering heat outside. I turned it. An unmistakable click greeted my ears. The door swung open with a groan, revealing years of neglect since last I had called this space home. The once vibrant colors of childhood posters now hung limp and faded, their subjects' eyes watching like ghostly sentinels. Underneath the bed, where I used to hide from thunderstorms or brooding thoughts, lay a dusty box wrapped in tattered sheets. Not something my mother would have tucked away for safekeeping. My curiosity ignited with an intensity that bordered on obsession. Upon opening it, photographs spilled out like secrets unleashed from the past. Faces, some familiar and others unfamiliar, stared back at me. I couldn't place them, but they felt too close. A shiver skittered down my spine as I lifted one. Girls in our neighborhood, playing tag in the backyard under an indistinct sky that still glimmered with the promise of summer sunsets. A few showed us gathered around a rickety table, our laughter captured midair. Each frame held warmth, yet seemed to whisper tales beyond recognition's reach. They weren't merely snapshots. They spoke of a life I was supposed to recall, but didn't remember living. Their origin remained shrouded in mystery as I set them back within the box. The sun had dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows through the grimy windows. I began packing away mementos and memories with an aimlessness that betrayed my true intention. To unravel these photographs' riddles. Their faces haunted me in the night, their smiles a siren's call to secrets waiting to be unearthed. Chapter 2. Whispers in the Walls. In the days since uncovering those enigmatic portraits, oddities plagued our home. Whispers that sounded like hushed conversations reverberated through the walls at night, a language I couldn't decipher. My mother dismissed it as the house settling, but each night they grew louder and more urgent, insistent. Tchotchkes on shelves shifted in a rhythmic dance, as if unseen hands played with them while I slept. Shadows coalesced into dark silhouettes darting along walls, eyes glowing for brief moments before vanishing. The photographs had become an obsession. Each day they lingered closer to my heart. Intrigue battled dread as I pored over the images in a dimly lit room, fingers tracing the faces that no longer looked unfamiliar. Emma's freckled nose, and Olivia's messy braids stared back. Girls from the photos. They were friends I had all but forgotten, yet felt intimate with every gaze. A scrap of paper clutched between the pages caught my attention. A single name scribbled in red ink: Lily. My own reflection glared at me, reflected light dancing across her face in a photograph where it shouldn't have been there. The doorbell shattered the eerie quiet. I set aside investigation for later. At the front door stood Mrs. Kettle, our elderly neighbor from down the street. "Dear boy, you back? Good to see you." Her voice bore an unspoken question. "It's been a while." I invited her in, and she spoke about old times with practiced ease, but avoided mentioning the box or my room. In hushed tones during coffee, she reminisced about Lily, a friend who had disappeared under inexplicable circumstances when we were children. She was taken from our quiet street one evening, leaving only her locket behind. I recognized it, buried beneath a pile of tattered shirts. It bore an old photograph in silvered glass. Us three girls. Mrs. Kettle departed as suddenly as she arrived. The photograph still on my mind, I placed the locket under my pillow that night. As darkness descended, whispers grew more insistent, weaving into a language I began to decipher. Fragmented phrases and words. The woods, Lily's secret. A faint wind whistled through the window. It was then I heard the unmistakable laughter of children from beyond our room's thin walls, long silenced by time. The room grew cold despite the sweltering heat outside. Chapter 3. The Final Goodbye. I crept up to my childhood bedroom door, ear pressed against it. Their giggles and whispers had become a symphony that drew me in with morbid fascination. "Why?" I whispered. A response echoed back, an ethereal child's voice carrying Lily's name on her lips. I pushed open the door to reveal a scene from long before I was born. Girls in nightgowns, crouched over a table laid bare, surrounded by the scent of sugar and candlelight. In the center, a silver locket rested, reflecting their faces like eerie moonlight. They spoke in hushed tones, occasionally breaking into giggles as they passed the plate around a circle of secrets. As I watched, transfixed, Emma glanced up at me from within the frame. Her eyes locked onto mine before vanishing. My heart stuttered. Lily rose from the table and walked towards me with an unnatural gait, hand outstretched for the locket. With trembling hands, it slipped over my head. A sudden rush of summer air enveloped me as the door creaked shut behind her. My breath quickened. In this dreamlike state, I couldn't fathom reality from nightmare. Yet the room transformed. The girls materialized around me. Lily's wild hair now matted with leaves and twigs. Olivia's eyes glowing an unsettling yellow. And Emma's laughter now had a sinister edge to it. In their hands was something darkly familiar. A black book bound in what looked like human skin. They parted before me, allowing the plate to pass from hand to hand. Lily approached, pressing it into mine. As I took it, a stinging rain began outside. Droplets of blood on parchment pages that seared my fingers with every touch. In this impossible moment, they shared their tales and warnings within the book's red that inked margins. Dark spells, a girl taken by forces both human and inhuman from the woods that whispered at night. They vanished in a thin air as I sat in stunned silence. Lily remained behind, her eyes holding an unspoken truth. I closed my fist around the plate. Its weight felt heavier than stone. Whispers outside turned to urgent chanting, and my room shook with an ancient power. Shadows coalesced from both walls as the door rattled under unknown forces. The girls reappeared, their eyes now black as coal. and the room pulsed red light before darkness engulfed us all. Upon opening my eyes, I found myself in those woods, surrounded by gnarled trees. Lily appeared with an otherworldly smile. "We are bound by secrets," she said, tracing a symbol on the plate's leather cover. "Our pact from childhood, made when we sought more than friendship." A figure emerged through the tree-line, hunched and shadowed. Lily whispered one word in my mind before I was dragged screaming into their world. "Run." We escaped, but that night they vanished. In the present, my room stilled. The door slammed shut as if of its own accord. An unseen force now shared our space. When sunlight returned, Lily's locket on the floor beside me. I opened the book, its pages stained in crimson. A message was scrawled across one. "For Emma and Olivia. Remember." It fell to the floor like a challenge. In their stead stood girls no more than 9 years old, blood staining their hands as they held it up to the sky. They turned toward me, eyes aglow with an ancient understanding. We were not the only ones left behind, bound by secrets and darkness from a different age. I released the plate. A storm's first droplets fell, smearing red ink on the locket and pages. I closed the book, perhaps too late. Shadows erupted into our reality. The night became alive with ancient powers as we fled the woods together once more before being taken, leaving behind remnants of our pact, a legacy of blood. In morning's light, Mrs. Kettle's voice called out, "Young one, come." The plate on my pillow bore a single message now: run. I fled for answers and understanding, into the woods that held Lily all those years ago. It was then I learned what had been done to us in the name of friendship, what we paid for secrets in the darkness they called forth. Lily whispered in my back, "The pact remains." In their eyes, ancient hunger gleamed with recognition. My mother would never understand, not after all these years. "It's best you run.